However, the key highlight of yesterday's proceedings in Parliament was the fact that certain opposition MPs actually voted in favour of the 20th Amendment. It was even the talk of the town, especially on social media today, that one MP from the opposition who was wearing a band on his arm saying stand against the 20th Amendment to the Constitution had also, ironically, voted in favour of the 20th Amendment. And to discuss everything that happened in Parliament, outside and in political sphere in general here in Sri Lanka, we have with us today MP Eran Wickramaratne from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule. I take it you are here directly from Parliament.
Yes, I had a meeting in between Parliament and here. Yeah.
So let's get right to it, without wasting any time. Yesterday, the Deputy General Secretary of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya voted in favour of the 20th Amendment. Why?
It's always difficult to say why people, define the line. The coalition that we belong to, including the Samagi Jana Balawegaya party, there was a three-line whip that was issued. And when a three-line whip is issued in Parliament, that means we all go by the whip. And the decision was, and we were all there in the two previous group meetings, unanimous decision was made that we are voting against the 20th Amendment. So actually it is a violation of the three-line whip that some members voted against it, right? Now the reasons, of course, might vary.
Well, of course, the passage of the 20th Amendment, there were criticisms against it, there were people who spoke in favour of it. At the end of the day, the content of the 20th Amendment cannot be debated anymore because it has already been passed into law. But the take from yesterday's sessions in Parliament, of course, is whether or not people are getting a proper representation for the votes that they have cast at the ballots. And in this case, of course, the people have already voted for the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Diana Gamage, who voted for the 20th Amendment, was not an elected member. She was a member that was appointed through the national list. So technically, it's not the people in this case who have made a mistake or who have been deceived. What really happened inside the Samagi Jana Balawegaya?
Yeah, I would say, if I look at, I've been in Parliament for now 10 years, and if I look over a longer period of time, answering the question that why would somebody vote across the line of the whip, there are three main reasons. One reason that somebody would vote against the line of the whip and it is a powerful government on the other side is if they have fallen foul of the law or potentially have fallen foul of the law, right, then the fear factor could be used in coaxing people to vote with the government. The second reason why people would be crossing to vote with a government, it could be a financial factor. And the financial factor is that, these elections are very expensive, people have to recoup their expenses, or they are in business and have financial problems. As you know, everybody has a financial problem now, and they have large payments to be made to financial institutions, and they are unable to make these things. So second factor would be finance. The third factor could be why you would vote against a whip, could be a conscience factor. The conscience factor arises generally in more personalized laws, not in matters of policy in terms of economics policy and so forth. It's a matter of conscience. For example, if the death penalty is going to be carried out, maybe there'll be a conscience vote on it because people could personally disagree. If abortions are going to be liberalized, right, there could be a conscious vote on it. Otherwise, the conscience vote doesn't really come in. So when you ask the question like why would somebody cross over and vote, it could be any one of these two factors, because the third factor doesn't apply to the particular situation that arose yesterday. So it was unfortunate that one member of the SJB also crossed the line and voted, and the others were part of the coalition.
They were from other parties. Of course, the general public can send in, our viewers out there can send in their questions that will be posed on this show to MP Eran Wickramaratne to the number that's being displayed on your screen right now. So getting back to our discussion, let's give the benefit of the doubt to Diana Gamage because she's not here with us. And today she made an explanation in Parliament. She says that Antonio killed Caesar because he loved Rome, and she did this because she loves the country.
I think it goes without saying that all politicians
Love the country.
Yes, that they come into politics because they love the country. I would leave that to the public to make a judgment, to really find out whether people are in politics because they love this country. And that doesn't apply just to Diana Gamage, it applies to lots of politicians out there. Because as you know, when the issue of the dual citizenship came up as well, why would somebody be a dual citizen? Because they think that they can make a better future in another country. Therefore, they leave their country of birth and they go to another country. And I have no issue with those people because they had to fend for themselves, for their families, and they think they get a better future. But if they're going to come back into this country and become lawmakers in this country, surely what's unreasonable about asking them to give up their dual citizenship to take that position in this country, right? And when people are unwilling to do that, but think that it is easier to change the laws in this country, that really worries me. And then it shows who actually loves this country.
But then again, even on the dual citizenship provision, yesterday, speaking before the vote actually, MPs Uday Gammanpilla, Vimal Veeravansa, Vasudeva Nanayakkara kept on reiterating that the president wanted this provision in the constitution removed because of an emotional factor. He said that this provision was initially brought to stop him from contesting for the presidency, and therefore he has an emotional issue with this clause being in the constitution, and that the dual citizenship, the bar on dual citizens contesting for public office, will be reintroduced in the new constitution.
I'm not really sure whether the president has said that, because if the president has said that, then we have a problem. Because I was always thinking that the people you mentioned like Gammanpilla, Veeravansa and some of the others who talked about this were the jokers. If they are claiming that the president said that, they're trying to make the president a joker. Because come on, right, you won't go and change the law that exists and say that let's allow dual citizens because if 1 year from now I'm going to really reverse that law because they brought it against me. That's so ridiculous. This is baby stuff. Why would somebody even actually say that? I think they are really putting down the office of the president by actually saying a thing like that. If that was their policy decision and they followed it, that's fine. But a lot of these people try to show that they are really patriots of this country and they take a position, but under pressure, right, they have caved into the position. That's what has really happened.
So, speaking about the action that the SJB is planning on taking against the MPs who voted in favor of the 20th Amendment, what sort of action do you plan?
Oh, it's not just planning. There has been lots of discussion today, and the group was convened, and Sajith Premadasa, the leader, the group leader, right, finally reiterated the position. All the members who basically contravene the three-line whip to vote against the 20th Amendment have been expelled from the parliamentary group, right, with immediate effect. So that's an action that has been taken straight away. All those who basically violated the line that was given by the party have been, by the parliamentary group, has been expelled. Then other actions will follow, and that each party to which they belong basically will follow through with the other actions.
Right. Also, speaking about this, one parliamentarian who voted in favor of the dual citizenship clause but voted against the 20th Amendment as a whole, what would be your action against that parliamentarian?
I think that the action against that parliamentarian also in terms of the parliamentary group, right, will stand for the moment, but I'm sure that there will be an internal inquiry and he would be probably asked for reasons of actually what happened, because in effect he has voted against the 20th Amendment.
But this is a massive change to the constitution of Sri Lanka. This is one thing that would affect everyone across all party lines, across all communities, and judging by the numbers yesterday alone, it seems as if the opposition really had a chance of defeating this and having your way in parliament. However, because of a lack of unity within the opposition, this was not possible. How do you plan on regrouping?
Yeah, so it works like this, right? The opposition is a group of different parties, right? And so there is the Samagi Jana Balawegaya is only one party, and the only one person from that party actually voted for the 20th Amendment. Everybody else didn't vote for it. Other political parties, really that issue is to be internally resolved within those parties, and that will be left to the leadership of those parties.
So regarding this new constitution that everybody is talking about today, the Mahanayakas or the representatives of the Mahasangha also came out and requested the government to expedite this process. Are you hopeful of a new constitution coming anytime soon?
Well, if the new constitution was going to come soon, then we have to ask the question, what was the hurry in pushing a 20th Amendment? This is a government, a new president is elected with a mandate, right? And then a government is elected who claimed right from the beginning that it had a 2/3 majority in parliament, right? Then you have a family in control, you have a president and a prime minister from the same family, 4 members in the cabinet, in the highest decision making body of the country from the same family. And so all the power was there, and everybody was wondering, why are you in haste trying to push through a 20th Amendment? Why are you doing this? So if they were going to bring a new constitution, which we would have all supported, and that go through that process, but they didn't do that. They actually, instead of that, brought the 20th Amendment. That's worrying, because what the 20th Amendment has done is that it has curtailed democracy. It has strengthened the powers of the president, making the presidency more authoritarian. And we saw one demonstration of that today. The first day after the 20th Amendment was passed in Parliament, we saw an incident today. This morning, right, in Parliament, they suspended the standing orders. We have some 3 significant committees on finance in Parliament. One is the Committee on Public Enterprises, COPE, then there's a Committee on Public Accounts, COPA. In these 2 committees, when our government is in power, what we do is, as we try to create a new tradition of making the chairman of the committee a member of the opposition. So when we were in office till the end of 2019, I'm using an example, the Committee on Public Enterprises was chaired by a member of the opposition, Sunil Handunnetti. COPA was chaired by Lasantha Alagewanna. We had offered that to Bandula Gunawardhan actually earlier, and he had refused to take it. So we're trying to create a tradition of the checks and balances. So making a leader of MP of the opposition as chairman of those committees. Then there's another committee called the Committee on Public Finance, right, which was chaired by Mr. Sumanthiran. The Committee on Public Finance is not a question of tradition, it's a new committee. The standing orders basically says that it must be chaired by a member of the opposition. You know what they did today, straight after passing the 20th Amendment last night? They came into Parliament, they suspended the standing orders, because the Committee on Public Finance, we had proposed Dr. Harsha De Silva actually to chair that committee. They came in, and what did they do? They suspended the standing orders today, right? And they said, no, we are not allowing that. We are going to put a member of the government as chairman of the Committee on Public Finance. This is the first day after the vote in Parliament on the 20th Amendment. This is why I say this authoritarian streak that we saw, right, will intensify. You know, democracy is not just about numbers. Democracy is about following the law. So you have a constitution, you have standing orders, is a part of how you conduct yourself.
Well then, MP Wickramaratne, according to the law and regarding standing orders in Parliament, Parliament can suspend standing orders. Is that not true?
Okay, you can suspend a lot of things. You can use your majority and do a lot of things. I mean, look at it another way. Why have a judiciary, right? If you are going to determine everything by just having 5 people sit and then listen, and you're going to say, raise your hand if you're in favor or against on a judgment. It doesn't work like that. The judiciary is governed by a certain philosophy, a judicial philosophy, and behind that there's a whole body of law, written law, and then there's a whole body of unwritten law and customs and precedents and so forth.
Conventions.
There's international, so many things that really people who are trained in the law will be versed in those things when they come to make that judgment. It is not just decided on just putting unknown people there and just taking a vote on it. Similarly, parliaments around the world, some countries don't have a written constitution, but they have laws and they have traditions, they have precedents that they follow. In this country, right, often we don't follow traditions and precedents which are good. And then what do? We take time passing and revising standing orders. But then you come in, you have a majority, you just dispense with it without notice. This morning, without notice it happened. They came, they dispensed with it, and what did they do? They appointed a member of the government into the Committee of Public Finance. This is an indication of how they plan to govern the country, by overriding principles of democracy and decency.
So, stopping our debate right there, our conversation right there, we will cross over to a short commercial break. We will be back right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Newsline.
Newsfirst, Newsline.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline on TV1. Parliamentarian Eran Wickramaratne. Now, yesterday, the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was passed. However, there are certain amendments that were added during the committee stage. Now, some of these amendments were promised to the Supreme Court. A document was laid out. The people knew about it. There was a broad discussion about it. Others were announced before. Tell us a little bit about these amendments that were included in the committee stage yesterday.
Yeah, so the lawmaking process normally is that if the government intends introducing some kind of a bill, it has to gazette it. It's allowed for 14 days before it's brought to Parliament. Now they reduced it to 7 to start with. So that was one of the issues. There was another issue in that they also brought a provision which said that urgent bills could be brought into Parliament. And what they mean by urgent bills is you bypass that process I just described, and the President has the opportunity to decide to bring a bill. Right, it's now, your
24 hours.
Yeah, in 24 hours, it's 8 o'clock in the evening or whatever now, and he gives it to the court. By 8 o'clock tomorrow evening, the court has to tell him whether this bill is in harmony with the Constitution. If it's not, what are the changes? The following day, he could just take it to Parliament in the morning and he could get it passed. That's the urgent bill provision. So in a country like Sri Lanka, where once a law is passed by Parliament, a citizen has no right to question it, only to follow it. In some countries, there's a post-enactment judicial review permitted, where the citizen can go before the courts and the citizen can ask the courts whether this is actually in keeping with the Constitution. Sri Lankans don't have that. In India, you can do a post-enactment judicial review. You can do it in the United States of America and many other countries of the world. We only had one window, and that window we had was before it becomes a law, at the bill stage. That number of days were given that you could go to the courts and you could canvass the law and say, is this in keeping with the Constitution?
Right.
And the urgent bill provision doesn't allow that. Now, this is for bills. Now your question relates to actually the Constitution of the country. It's not just an ordinary law, it's a Constitution of the country. It's a primary law of the country. What did they do yesterday? Right? They had given a 20th Amendment, then they had sent some amendments to the court. The court had reviewed it. The court had said some things will need a referendum, some things can be passed with a special majority. They brought those, we agreed and disagreed on those, and they passed it. Then they brought some immediately, and they said that the number of judges in the Supreme Court needs to be increased. The number of judges in the appeals courts needs to be increased. And then there were one or two other changes as well in there. Now, this was not referred to the courts to start with, because it's an amendment you're moving at committee stage. But it's an amendment that you're moving at committee stage on the Constitution of the country. Right? We objected to it. I personally objected to it. In my speech, I said, on principle, we are going to oppose any new amendments that are brought in at committee stage. In fact, when the 19th Amendment was passed, something similar happened. And that was not regarded as proper. Professor G.L. Pieris, who was speaking then on the 19th Amendment, right, in April 2015, specifically referred to it and said, this is not the proper process. You mustn't bring amendments like this, particularly on law and on the constitution, right, at the committee stage, right, and you shouldn't be doing that. I agreed with that argument. So what happened now is like, you made a mistake then, you're making a mistake now, so what about it? Two wrongs never make a right. And what they did was absolutely wrong. They should have consulted the court, and this is a matter pertaining to the court. They should have consulted the Supreme Court on this matter, which they didn't. That is why we raised objection to it, and we think what they did was wrong. They should have then brought it as a subsequent amendment.
We have only a final few minutes remaining on our show, MP Wickramaratne. We have a question from one of our viewers, and he is asking, is it possible for opposition leader Sajid Premadasa to appoint a new member to parliament and remove MP Diana Gamage, who voted in favour of the 20th Amendment?
Yes, so if you look at it, as I said, that everything, there is a process for everything, right? And the process here is certainly they have actually decided, right, to abandon the three-line whip. They have actually decided to abandon sitting with the parliamentary group. So the parliamentary group, right, they have all been expelled from the parliamentary group. Now, other disciplinary actions, right, there is a process, and those processes will be taken up with the respective political parties, including the Samagi Janabala Wege. And the processes must be followed, because justice always needs to be done in the proper manner. So I think those things have left to the general secretaries and the leaders of the party, and I think sometime in the future you will hear about each party how they are going about it.
The 20th Amendment has already been passed in Parliament. However, does that mean that the opposition will stop voicing their concerns regarding these new changes that have been made to a constitution? Would you continue your call for a new constitution as the opposition?
We certainly will not move away from the issues that come out of the 20th Amendment. The 20th Amendment actually restricts democracy, right? The president has taken now the responsibility to make all the major appointments in the country without checks and balances, including the judiciary. So one is, anyway, by doing away with the Constitutional Council, doing away with the commissions, right? What does the president do? He has taken upon himself that he could make the appointments.
And on that point, on the flip side of it, doesn't it mean that now the buck stops at the president? Anything that happens in the country can be finally traced to one person who is responsible for it?
No. That's not the point. You see, that's not the point. That's very, very dangerous. We must really put in systems in governance. We mustn't look at individuals and decide how we should do something. Life is so uncertain. We may have somebody else sitting there tomorrow in that chair. Life is so uncertain, and systems must be put in. We are building a country for the future generation. So constitutions, law, processes all have to be put in place. So when you take on responsibility without a check and balance in appointing, for example, judges, then, as I said, they move at committee stage, increase the number of judges. So look at it another way. You can pack the Supreme Court with anybody you want. That can happen as well. Look at the situation of the Auditor General, right? He is appointing the Auditor General. We all know, if you have a company, you may be running a company, you have the CEO and the management, but once a year there will be an annual general meeting. The shareholders will be called. What is the most important decision the shareholders take? They make the decision of who will be the auditor for that company. It is not the CEO who appoints the auditor. The CEO of the country is the president, and therefore there has to be a check and balance, because the president is responsible for the executive function. He is responsible for the budget and for the spending and so forth. So the Auditor General should be appointed independently. Those principles have all been violated by the 20th Amendment.
However, MP Wickramaratne, we have now got to live with this 20th Amendment because it is part and parcel of our Constitution. Of course, like the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, the 20th Amendment to the Constitution has also been passed again with a promise of a new Constitution. The procedure to draft a new constitution began shortly after the passage of the 19th Amendment. However, it did not see the light of day. We've been asking for a new constitution. The general public of this country has been asking a new constitution for decades. Let's wait and see as to if we will get it this time around. Thank you very much once again, MP Eran Wickramaratne, for joining us on our show. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in, and also for your valuable questions that you've sent in to Newsline. Of course, we will meet again, same time, same place next week. Until then, take care and God bless.